and they'd look out and they'd be, that's cool, man. And so it just kind of started as a lark, just doing weird voices, you know. And I started doing all those old actors, a lot of westerns in those days, like Old John Wayne and going around talking, and they put me up at my high school to do pep assemblies, because in Kansas, where I grew up, we'd be fighting the Dodge City Demons or something like that. So on pep assembly, get up and do John Wayne. So I'd start doing voices and stuff, and that's kind of how I started doing them, and I got known for that. So yeah, I've done a lot of pranks over the years.
I guess I have called the front desk at a Disney resort before. I was on a business trip, and they were like, I forget what we had to call down for, but they're like, call us Mickey. So they answer at front desk. I go,
oh yeah, it's me, Mickey Mouse. I was wondering, can we get a few more towels up here?
And he was like, sure, Mr. Iwan, okay. Yeah. Probably thinking like, that guy has a really high voice. What's wrong with him? Who else? Oh, way back here, I see you.
I got it.
Name and where you're from, Carl.
Is that Corolla?
Audrey originally here, and Bret mentioned that he fell into it. And I'd like to ask both of you, I mean, fell into it doesn't sound like that's what really happened. I can't believe that you didn't have to audition or study or do anything else. You just fell in. So could you each tell me how you really got into it?
Sure, well, I say I fell into it, or maybe I should say it fell into my lap, really. So I was an artist at Hallmark greeting cards for 5 years out in Kansas City, Missouri after I graduated college. And like I said, I'd been doing Mickey's voice for friends just to be funny. But this one day I got an email and it said, do you want to be the voice of Mickey Mouse? And it had all these instructions on this audition process that was taking place within the company. My friend works at Pixar, who I went to school with, and so she knew that I did Mickey's voice. She sent me the email and she's like, you gotta do this. So that's why I say I really fell into it. I wasn't an aspiring voice actor by any means. It really just stemmed from my passion for Disney and Mickey, that when I saw this audition, I thought, well, this is gonna be a cool story to say I auditioned for. I never thought I would go forward. So yeah, there were instructions on, for these characters, when you're taking over what they like to call a legacy character, it's about doing voice match. You're trying your best to respect the character as it was originated. So for me, I had clips from Walt, I had clips from Wayne to listen to, and so it was about matching those performances. And so initially you called in, you kind of left your demo, as it were, on a voicemail system. And then after that, they whittled it down to who they wanted to come in for callback auditions. So I flew myself out to LA and I did an in-person audition. And then and I should also say at the time it was to be an understudy position with Wayne. So Wayne was still the voice, the current voice, and they wanted somebody that could come in and Wayne could start to train a bit. The day I went out for my audition is actually, I was told Wayne went into the hospital that day. And so he never fully recovered, and then unfortunately passed away before they had made their final casting decision. So when all of that happened, it was a very sad time for Disney character voices, because it's a very small family that we're a part of. But projects continued to go on, so they asked me to start coming out. I was essentially commuting from Kansas City for a while to try on some projects. But on my second day on the job is when they offered it to me officially, and said, if you're open, we'd like you to be the guy, but you need to relocate to LA, which I'm from originally, so that was not a problem. So yeah, I did kind of trip and fall into it, but yeah, there was a process.
Yeah, mine was a little different. Back in the early '80s, about '82 through '86, I was a stand-up comic. I'd always liked show business. I thought I was going to give this a shot, and so I started, and I did impressions and stand-up, and that was great training for me. And I did that from '82 through '86, and I lived in Dallas at the time. My agent said, well, with all the voices and impressions you do, you ought to go out to Hollywood and see what happens. I got an apartment out in Hollywood. My wife stayed in Dallas, and I kind of commuted while I was doing stand-up for a while. And as luck would have it, about 4 months after I got there, Disney Character Voices, a new division of Disney, There was 4 or 5 guys kind of filling in for Mickey. They weren't doing that much with they weren't making cartoons or anything. They might have a record album once in a while, and they needed someone. Bob, you want to be Goofy? Okay. You know, it was like Goofy du jour. There were 4 or 5 guys. A guy in Florida, one of the announcers at Disneyland, did all the voices badly, but and they wanted, and Roy Disney and Michael Eisner wanted to hear one person do each of the characters, so you'd have consistency. So there was a big audition, and for all of the characters at the time, and I just got a cassette with the original voice of Goofy, Pinto Colvig, from like 1930s cartoons, Boat Builders, Lonesome Ghosts, and you know, and I just took it home over a weekend and practiced, and you know, worked on the laugh, the and gosh, oh, the world owes me all in one, did a little song and stuff. And laid it down at my agent, you know, not really thinking that much of it. You just, you know, you're up against hundreds, if not thousands, of other people. And they gave me a call back to do one job in January 23rd of '87. And I just looped one line of copy. And then about a month and a half later, they called me again, and then again. But there's no, you are now the voice of Goofy forever. No, it's just like every time is a new, still a new contract each time. So we're not under contract. You might be, I'm not. So you know, I don't know. But every job I go into is still, I'm like the plumber. You know, you got a job. I go in, I do it, I go home. That's kind of the way it is. And now, like I say, after 30 years, I think I pretty well have the job.
Yeah, I think you're safe. Yeah. Yeah, there is, I've heard a couple of interviews with Wayne where he talked about, you know, there was no big passing of the baton or any big ceremony. It's just kind of like, you start working and the jobs start coming.
Until you don't.
Yeah. And one thing I love that Wayne said, and Jimmy actually told this to Wayne, he said, remember kid, you're just filling in for the boss. Because when it comes to Mickey or any of the other characters, but specifically Mickey, Walt was the first voice of Mickey. And Mickey was Walt, and Walt was Mickey. So, you know, our job is just to kind of carry on that legacy. So I thought that was really cool that Jimmy told that to Wayne. And even though I didn't get a chance to work with Wayne or meet him, I believe he probably would have told me the same thing. You know, remember kid, you're just filling in for the boss. Because, yeah, just get to play a small little part, you know. I'm Mickey number 4. There will be a Mickey number 5 someday.
Yeah. Right.
It keeps going on. They never die.
Never die.
I'm 90 years old this year.
Happy birthday, Mickey!
And yeah, if you don't know, Walt was the very first animated character that had a voice. So
Yeah, that's right.
the oldest and most relevant character there is.
Yeah.
And it's still on TV every day.
The start of character voices, as
Right.
we know them. His
Absolutely.
first words were hot dog.
Hot dog! Hot dog!
Who else has a question?
Several, yeah.
Oh,
That's coming. I see that.
God. Don't worry,
Tell them where you're
he's
from.
got. Oh,
On camera. What did you like about you in Kingdom Hearts, and what did you like about it?
Oh, Kingdom Hearts. I think Bill kind of touched on this earlier, but you know, like Bill said, I don't play video games. I'm really bad at them.
Yeah.
I get motion sick with the current ones. I stopped playing video games after they stopped going like this across the screen. I mean, it was too immersive. I got sick.
That's an unusual project in that video games, when you do video games, there's a lot more lines of dialogue.
yeah.
But they're like spread out because if the player goes this direction, you gotta have lines for that. If he goes this direction, you gotta have lines for that. So it's not like a cartoon show like Mickey and the Roadster Racers, it's like a story. And we usually start at the beginning and I'll do like line 3, let's say is a Goofy line. And howdy Mick, you know, whatever it is. And then you do line 7, 15, all the way through, kind of in a linear thing. In a video game, you get a big binder of different, you know, high-lit lines, and you don't know what they said before or afterwards. So I know less about that game than most fans because,
Yeah, no,
you know,
it's
even
extremely
though I'm in
limited
the game,
content, yeah.
because I don't know what's before or after. I only know the line I'm doing, and I'm watching the video of it and trying to get the words, and you kind of have to really focus, so you can't really take time. Oh, you know, they're going on this journey. It's just lines until you see the game played later on. And so it's, video games are kind of weird in that.
Yeah, they are. But that one's fun, and I would say my favorite part of working on Kingdom Hearts is that we do what's called ADR. So, like Bill mentioned, they do the animation and the recording in Japanese first, so then when we see it, we're filling in to the
English
so
words.
it's kind of like a video game for us in the sense that you're keyed up for your role or your spot with a couple of beeps, beep beep beep, and then you talk, and your job is to make the voice fit into that animation. So it's a fun process for me. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, I have
Another voice. There's
I have one more question back here.
Okay.
Very special
I
question.
got it.
I wanted to ask you
I
guys.
got it. Hey, no problem.
Hi.
I wanted to ask if you had any one piece of advice that you want to impart to aspiring voice actors, what that would be?
Okay, I teach all the time to aspiring voice actors. And number one, if you're going to be a voice actor, get rich parents. That'll come in real handy when you get started because it's a very competitive business. In Los Angeles, there's like 150,000 Screen Actors Guild members. These are people that paid the $3,000 to join the union that want to pursue it that heavily. On any given week, there's about 10 to 15,000 acting jobs. So on any given week, there's like 140,000 out-of-work actors. So it's very competitive. Number two, take acting lessons because a lot of people think that it's all about the voice and it's really all about the acting. People always say, I have a great voice, I should be a voice actor. Well, that's like saying, I got a great guitar, I should be a guitarist. No, you got to learn how to play your instrument, and your voice is your instrument. So take acting lessons, and I would recommend any kind of acting like improv or stand-up was great for me because you're in front of a live audience. And in that kind of situation, you find out real fast if something's funny or not funny, and you learn over time on how to say the line so you get the most funny out of it, which comes in real handy because we're just in a booth with a microphone, a music stand, a chair, and a script, and that's all. So we have to say those lines and bring them to life, bring them off the page, and give them life. And make them funny, if it's a comedy script, and you got to know what words to emphasize, and that only happens by practicing generally in front of an audience.
Thank you very much.
What about you, Brett? What are your...
I would just echo everything Bill said, and so much of my process has been learning that. Like I said, I wasn't an aspiring voice actor to begin with, so it's been trial by fire for me, but everything you just said is what I've learned. It's so much more than the voice, it's the acting, it's, and yeah, you are in that room with the microphone, you don't have the ability to use facial expression to convey something like you would on camera. It's just all based on your vocal performance, so I think, but I would say, because I've pursued creative professions, as an artist and now in voice acting, I think passion is always key for anything you pursue. So if you're passionate about it, you can't kind of do it, you got to do it. You got to commit to it, and I think that really sets you apart. But I think it's also remembering that it's hard work for any job or any career you pursue. You just have to be willing to do the work, and I think that usually shows through. People recognize if you're a hard worker and you're good at what you're doing. So,
Thank you.
All right, well, that's about all the time we have for our panel today. Give it up for Bret Iwan, Bill Farmer, Mickey, and Goofy, everybody.
Oh gosh, thank you.
And come over and see us. We're over in
The European Hangar, they will be doing autographs at their booth. They have a little Disney corner.
Yeah, we'll be over there. Come on by, say hi.
Please do.
Thanks so
Will.
much for listening to us.
nice to see everybody. Thank you.
Thank
Happy
you guys so
birthday,
much.
Mickey!
Oi.
See you later, Goofy! Bye-bye! Thank you so much, Mickey and Goofy!
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody! Oh, and one more thing.
Bye.
Honor our hero.